What's up, world? I think I'm live. Jeff Lerner here. I'm pretty sure I'm live. I should pull up my Facebook and YouTube just to make sure. Yeah, it says I'm live. Tremendous, tremendous. So, how's everybody doing today? It's I got about 20 minutes to chat, and I got some big things we need to talk about. Hope everyone is doing amazingly. I'm going to pull these into their own tab here. It's a crazy time we're in, huh? How's everybody holding up? I got to pull these up so I can read your comments as we go live. I want to be able to read your comments. Okay, so I'm going to tell you, I got the worst nose itch. Off camera, itch the nose. So let me tell you what we're going to talk about. Today we're going to talk about how to save your life in the current craziness. We live in an insane world, as I'm sure you know. And saving your life is as simple as realizing... I got some big things we need to talk about. Hold on. Let's pause that. Hope everyone is doing amazingly. Tammy, Amy, appreciate you being here. You know, it used to be so simple just to go live. You used to just go live, but now I got multi-streaming on different platforms. As we go live, I want to be able to see who's here. So yeah, there's all this tech. And when I'm home, I can actually get somebody to help me run the tech. But now I'm not even home. I'm on vacation at our place up in the country, and so I got to do it all myself. It's just a lot to manage, but that's okay. This is the life we choose, right? So here's how the law of large numbers is going to save your life in the current craziness. Let me know you're here, by the way. Let me know. Like I said, who else is here? I see Lucy. I see Dave. All right. It takes a minute for everything to sync up. All right, let me get to the point because now I've only got 18 minutes. The law of large numbers. Basically, if you don't know what the law of large numbers is, it's essentially, so there's a little bit of a predictive conundrum, if you will. So if you go to a casino, and let's say you play roulette, right? You bet on black. So there's approximately a 50-50 chance that you bet on black and you're going to win, right? That it's going to come. So let's say you do that and you lose. And then you roll again, you bet on black again, and you lose again. It comes up red. And you bet again, you roll again, and you lose, and you bet on black again, and you lose again, right? So at this point, in most people's minds, they're like, man, it's time. It's time for my ship to come in. Good morning, Levante. What's up? Appreciate you being here. They say, man, it's time for this one's me. I'm due, right? Well, the law of large numbers says, or I guess the predictive conundrum is this: you're actually not due. It doesn't matter what already happened. The odds are still 50-50. If you flip, let's use flipping a coin. That's even easier. If you flip a coin and you get 10 heads in a row, you might think, I'm due for a tails. I know it's going to be tails. But actually, the odds are still 50-50 that the next flip is going to be tails. And so on any given experiment that has certain odds, the odds are always the odds. They're not influenced by previous odds, right? And so that's obviously a natural fallacy that I think we all kind of believe in our thinking, like that, you know, I'm unlucky because this has happened to me before, so I'm just destined for it to not happen. No, but the odds are always the odds, right? And so the law of large numbers says, well, even though each individual case has only its own unique set of odds that are independent of all other cases, taken in aggregate, there's a general law that applies that the general, in other words, even though you can't predict what the next one is going to be, you can predict what the next million are going to be. Sorry, what is all that noise coming from my computer? The next million, based on the law of large numbers, are going to come out to roughly 500,000, 500,000. So even though you can't say with any confidence that the next one is going to be heads or tails, you can say that the next million are going to be roughly half heads and half tails. So there's this like predictive conundrum, like I say, that even though you can't predict one, you can predict many. That's the law of large numbers. That was a kind of a clunky explanation of it. But here's how this is going to impact your life. You know, we go through life because we're emotional beings. We experience every one experiment as if it tends to have greater meaning. So when we go through let's say we have 5 relationships and they all go badly. We draw this conclusion about relationships, or we draw these conclusions about the opposite gender or the same gender, if those are our relationships. We draw these conclusions about us in relationships, and you know, some of those might actually be relevant because they're not about probability, they're about personality, but you know, that's a separate question. The point is we draw conclusions from very tiny sample groups about very significant matters in our life. And I think in large part we do this because experientially the world is very small, even though in reality the world is very big, right? Experientially the world is very small, but in reality the world is very big. We experience such a tiny sliver of what's out there, and we have to form all of our beliefs about the world based on this tiny little experience, right? So maybe you see where I'm going with this. In business, in life, in relationships, in general suppositions about the world and the universe and our place in it, we never have anywhere close to a meaningful set of information. I say we never. Most of us, most of the time, don't have anywhere close to a usefully large set of data. What's up, Rob? Appreciate you being here. You owe me a text back, by the way. William, appreciate you being here. So hear that again. In most things, most of us, most of the time, don't have anywhere close to enough information to actually draw the only real logical conclusions about how things work, which would come from, according to the law of large numbers, actually having large numbers of data. This is why I love being a marketer. I'm one of the few people in the world, and there's a few of us. There's statisticians, there's economists, there's people in insurance agencies, there's people in healthcare, there's trends analysts, there's people that do investment analysis and analyze metadata and large, a lot of academics look over large bodies of data, and there's marketers. We live and die by the law of large numbers. Our stuff doesn't matter. I can't tell you if one person's going to buy my thing. But I deal in large numbers all the time. I'm running a split test right now, trying to turn 11% into 12% across thousands and thousands of people. And if I can do that, it swings our margins by 40%, right? One tiny percentage shift swings the margins 40%. We have to have large numbers as marketers. It's actually one of the reasons most people aren't very good marketers, because they don't understand that, and they bring their human, emotional habits into their marketing, and they try to draw conclusions about if it works or if it doesn't work, or if they're cut out for it or if they're not, based on tiny little sample groups of like 5 people. Same thing happens with salespeople. They're like, well, I talked to 5 people and none of them wanted to buy, so I guess it doesn't work. It's like sales is a large numbers game too. The difference between sales and marketing, well, depending on how you're selling, like if you're doing webinar sales, you can have 50,000 people on at a time. Then you're actually getting some meaningful data. Large numbers set you free. Let me get to the point here. Large numbers set you free. How? Because they accomplish 2 of the most important fundamental mental goals that we must pursue in our life in order to be happy. One of those things is to realize how truly small and insignificant we are. We are small and insignificant, and there's total freedom in that. You are liberated when you realize you're not as big a deal as you feel or even sometimes think. You're just not. Really nobody cares. There's so much freedom in that, because the reality is you can go through life, you can make a huge mess of things. I know some people, I have some friends that are going through a huge, reputational crisis right now because of some crazy nonsense that, the details don't matter. But the point is, it's all going to be forgotten in 3 months. Gary Vee said it best. He said, And Gary Vee, he's made himself a relatively big deal through this voluminous content that he produces. But he said, I realized when Prince only got 3 days, I realized nobody cares about Gary Vee. Prince, we were talking about Prince, one of the biggest pop superstars ever. And when he died, he dominated the news headlines for 3 days. You never hear about Prince in the news anymore, right? If Prince only gets 3 days, I promise you're probably not even going to they're not going to run it on the news if you died. You have some horrific accident and outside of 20, 30 people, maybe 100 people, it's not going to ripple at all. And even that, the ripple will be dissipated in a week. You're not that big a deal. I'm not that big a deal. The law of large numbers really helps you understand that. The world is so damn big. Never mind the universe. Never even mind the whole world. Just your country. Just your state. It's so big. You're so small. You don't matter, which means you're free. You can do what you want. If you don't matter, it means other people's opinion of you doesn't matter. It means other people's judgments of you doesn't matter. Frankly, it means whether you succeed or fail doesn't matter. So you're free. Live it up. Enjoy your life. Be yourself. Do what you want. Just don't hurt other people. Because frankly, they matter more than you because there's a fundamental sanctity of respecting life and boundaries. It's actually way more important than you are individually. And there's freedom in that, right? But here's the other thing that understanding the law of large numbers accomplishes is it makes you realize that the opportunity is so big. You are so small, and the opportunity is so big. And that is the ultimate power, is realizing that. Your insignificance parallels the ginormity of the opportunity. And frankly, think about it. If you were more important, the opportunity would be less significant. It's your tiny little place in the universe that must have that relationship with the everything elseness for the opportunity to actually be that big. And when you really start to understand this, you can have any life you want if you understand this and you obsessively focus your life on only doing things that play into this reality, that try to give you the leverage to start to move the opportunity even though you are so insignificant. Archimedes, the guy who discovered, what was it called, the displacement of water and came up with the concept of how to measure mass, right? And Eureka, he ran out in the street, Eureka, you remember that story from science class? Archimedes said something that if we all really understand in the context of what I'm talking about, we realize how much power we have in this world. He said, give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I can move the world. Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I can move the world. He was describing leverage, this term that we all use. We use it in entrepreneurship. We use it in economics, business all the time. It's the ultimate pursuit for most business people who realize that you can't get farther just by working harder beyond a certain point. You have to multiply your efforts, right? Hey, Hillary, appreciate you being here. Malcolm, what's up? Paula, glad you're here. Levante, did I shout you out, man? I'm glad you're here too. Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I can move the world. The reason you need a long lever is because you are so insignificant. If you're sitting there trying to pull the lever by yourself, it doesn't matter because you're so small. You don't need to pull harder. You need a longer lever. And the opportunity's on the other side. And here's the deal. If you obsess, if you make the singular focus of your life to get a longer lever, to wedge into the opportunity on the little fulcrum of your own effort, you can have anything you want in this world. It's insane. But you're like, well, how do I get a long lever? I mean, if everybody knew, if there was a store where you could go buy levers, I would just take everything I have and go ask for the longest one they have, and spend as much as it took, and then I'd have this long lever. Here's the cool thing. You don't actually buy the lever. You build the lever. You build the lever through daily, consistent, compounding effort spent on the right things. And so the only control you have in this world to take your tiny little person who's not strong enough to hardly pull any lever and make the lever so long that it only requires a tight tap, a slight tap to lift this giant world of opportunity based on how significant everything else is in comparison to you, is to build it through compounding, consistent daily effort, focusing on only things that build a longer lever. Eliminate everything in your life that doesn't build a longer lever. Catching up with your friends on the weekends, I'm not opposed to it. I would minimize how much time you spend doing it because they're probably not lengthening your lever. What else? Commuting to work, time you don't get paid for, I would avoid it. I would try to get a job where you don't have to do it because it's time spent that's not lengthening your lever. And if you can't get out of it, at least spend the time listening to audiobooks or learning something, learning a language, developing a skill, selling on the phone, growing your side hustle, doing something else to try to lengthen your lever with the time. Every minute of every single day, you only spend on things that lengthen your lever. And the only way to lengthen your lever, because you can't do it all at once, you can't wake up one day and be like, oh, today I'm going to extend my lever. No, you tiny little bits every day. Simplify your life only to things where you can essentially be lengthening your lever but gaining more leverage because you're so insignificant based on a realization that the world is as big and the opportunity is as big as you are small, and everything you do every day should be about lengthening your lever. And there's only a few, for me personally, there's only a few frontiers where I see a long-term reward, a long-term leverage to be gained by daily consistent effort applied. One is with my family. Those relationships are a different type of lever to me, and I want to build them every day. A few little bits and pieces here and there every day. My baby girl comes in this room for a few minutes here and there. I consider that time well spent. I'm adding tiny little deposits into a long-term account that's going to compound into the joy and fulfillment in my kids' lives and a strong marriage. And there's a personal lever that we're trying to build. Physically, I go to the gym every day. I don't go to the gym for 4 hours. I don't try to do Herculean things. I just go every day. I pay my dues. I put my deposit in. I pay the compound interest. And here's the thing, in life, there's the value of currency decays over time, right? It's called inflation. And so in a lot of cases, there's some things in life where all you can really aim for is to break even, because if you're breaking even over time, it means you're actually gaining against the natural decay curve. That's kind of how I view fitness at 41. Every day I go to the gym. I'm not trying to break any records, but I'm putting my deposits in every day just so I can earn enough interest to outpace the natural decay, the natural depreciation of my own body over time, because I'm 41, right? But that's still a compounding effect. It's still about lengthening my lever, because ultimately I'm maintaining the energy that powers the industry of everything else that I'm able to do in this world, because I need to be energized and strong, even if I only sleep 6 to 6.5, busy, even if I only sleep 6 to 6.5 hours a night. I need to be able to run an efficient machine based on certain food and certain fuel. It's all part of an organic machine, right? So that's still a way that we're lengthening our lever, that we're making tiny deposits every day. And then ultimately, obviously, business or your career, your professional life, professional growth, wealth creation, investing, whatever it is. Obsessive, like annoyingly obsessive, narrow, to the point where people think you're almost narrow. You're so obsessed in the moment. They say, can't you see the bigger picture? Because you're not seeing their bigger picture, you're seeing your own bigger picture. Where like minute by minute, you're doing things that lengthen your lever. That's all you should be worried about doing, is lengthening your lever. Are you posting on Instagram or are you posting on YouTube? Which one lengthens your lever? I spend a lot more energy on my YouTube content. I've only recently started even attending to posting on Instagram. Why? Because people, before I didn't care. I don't care. Here's the deal. I was making a couple $100,000 a month online when I had like 500 Instagram followers. People go, oh, he must be such a big shot on the internet. He's got 1 million Instagram followers. Great. Does he know how to monetize them? That's not the point until you look at your strategy and you go, wait, okay, now it's costing me. Now I need a longer, now the length of my lever is related to my Instagram following. Because why? Because I started a podcast. and I'm trying to book certain influencers onto my podcast, and they are looking at Instagram. Frankly, they're looking at Instagram as a measure of my credibility because they don't actually know as much about how money's made on the internet as I do. If they did, they would recognize that having a big Instagram following isn't actually a measure of your competence as an internet marketer, but because they have different currency than I do, and their currency is more about influence than the ability to monetize that influence, because there's a lot of big influencers that can get a whole lot of people to do a whole lot of things, but they don't know how to make any money off of it. But their currency is different. If I want them on my podcast, I have to grow some assets in their currency. So now Instagram matters. So now I'm working on it. But for a long time I didn't, because it didn't matter. But it's that obsession, that focus, that singular focus on, am I increasing my leverage in the world? Because according to the law of large numbers, it's the only way I have a shot at tapping in to the opportunity that the law of large numbers tells me is a virtual certainty if I just have a long enough lever and a fulcrum on which to place it. And this is, by the way, this is true outside of business. Like I said, relationships, health, consciousness. Want to defeat racism? Get everyone to travel more. Get everyone to go to, make every single person on Earth visit a city in all at least 6 populated continents on Earth. I don't know that we all need to go to Antarctica. And racism virtually goes away. One of the reasons I think I tend to not be racist is because when I was growing up, I traveled around. I went to other countries. I went to Mexico. I went to Japan. I went to Spain. I went to Germany. I went to a bunch of other places, and I saw, not everybody looks like me, and yet their civilization functions just fine. And even where I lived, we would go eat Chinese food, and we would go eat Jamaican food, and exposure is one way that you access the law of large numbers. Ideally, you learn how to leverage it and put it to work in your favor. But at the very minimum, at least be exposed to it. Get out of your flipping town. I live in a freaking town of 200,000 people. It was like 98% white people. Most of them never leave. No wonder half of them are demented, right? Understanding how small you are and how big the world is step one. Step two, then, is living obsessively in such a way to create tools and ultimately a machine that puts leverage on your side. Because when you understand how much bigger the world is than you realize that you can have anything. When I started putting content out, by the way, why did I start putting content out? Because content is a compounding form of leverage. Why did I start? That's why I started putting it out. When I started back in September 2018, I actually just pulled the numbers. In the month of October 2018, my online business did about 900 leads, and I had about 500 new customers, and even most of that was residual from some other campaigns. I would say my content that month probably contributed to maybe 700 or 800 leads and maybe 100 sales. Now, fast forward to now, just in the last 7 days, I just pulled the number. We've done 17,000 leads and almost 1,000 new customers in the last 7 days. And all that I did to make that happen was for about a year and 8 or 9 months, I've been putting out content every day. Every day I do this hard thing. It's not easy. It doesn't do itself. I have to do it, and it's never convenient. There's never a good time, but I make myself do it because building a longer lever is more important to me than virtually anything. Because I want to have a lever long enough to move the entire world on my own behalf, on behalf of my family and generations to come. I want a fortress of wealth and influence and authority and excellence and performance and track record and reputation that content marketing helps create. So my question to you, because I got to go because I'm 4 minutes late for my other call, is what are you doing today to lengthen your lever? What daily actions are you taking that seem insignificant now, that seem almost pathetically small now, especially to people who want you to see their bigger picture, not your own, but where you know they're consistent with an obsessive focus on lengthening the lever of your own life? What are you doing? What are you doing today and tomorrow and the next day and the next day, non-negotiably, so non-negotiably that people think you have a mental disorder? I actually had a lady the other day a few days ago, she had put in a refund request to Archer. She said, all Jeff's talk about excellence, it's got me feeling so bad for being average. I feel like he's a Nazi trying to create a master race. She said that literally in the refund ticket. She said, Jeff, just all this talk about excellence. She said, I realize I have kind of an average life and I want to stay that way. And I don't want to feel bad about it. Well, I'm like, first of all, I'm Jewish. Second of all, I'm not saying that this mastery or this excellence is a function of your skin color or your bloodline. I'm saying it's a function of your daily beliefs and drive and decisions and actions. And then anyone can have it, even though I recognize that everyone won't. But whatever. I'm not defending myself against what she said, but I mean literally to the point where you're obnoxious and alienating to some people because your priorities honestly are just more right than theirs in terms of being congruent with how the world and the world of opportunity actually works. It's not a moral rightness. It's just a rightness in terms of what most people say they want with their lives, which is prosperity and freedom. Well, then great. I'm telling you how the world works. It's about leverage. And it's about a scale dynamic between how small you are and how big the opportunity is. And the way you get it is leverage. And leverage means doing things daily that compound. Hit the gym. Eat good food. Love. Don't hate. Speak. Communicate. Paula, you're right. She clearly has not read The Millionaire Mind. Learn new words so that you can more clearly articulate what it is that you feel, so you can be better understood, so your authority and influence in the market can be more unique and representative of who you actually are as a person. And in business, only do things that build leverage. That's the only way I know how to say it. All right, guys, I got to go. Appreciate you all. Peace.